First, I would never talk over the intro.
No talking, please.
I would never. I already said I would never.
No talking. No talking. No talking. Those are the lyrics.
Oh.
Those are the lyrics.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
No. Talking.
No. Yeah.
We're gonna workshop that. Yeah, we'll get that over the next few episodes.
No. I really like say it like that. No.
Good. That is good. Very good. Hey, it's left past 10. What's up, Antonio Reed? Antonio Reed joins us. Hello.
Guys, welcome. Happy to be back.
Yeah, good to see you. I like this orange-green secondary color scheme we've got going here.
Yeah, orange and green. It's really good.
Yeah. So Sandy is not with us today, but she's doing great. Everyone. Oh, she's in the chat, so she'll be trolling. She'll be trolling the show tonight. Sandy,
she loves to troll this fucking show. Normally she does it from the show, but this time
look, and she's like, "Hi, Jake." Oh yeah, because nobody else is here. There's nobody else on screen.
Yeah.
No, fine. No, yeah, I get it. No, that's fine. That's fine.
No. It's a goddamn shame.
Good to see you, buddy. I'm sorry to hear about health woes, but it sounds like you're recovering. And I miss you. I'm glad you're recovering. I'll see you next week.
Yeah, we got your back, Sandy. She says she's probably gonna go to sleep. And it's Andrea's fault. She says it's Andrea's fault. I'm so bored. I'm gonna go to sleep. So,
whoa!
Good job, Andrea.
Ooh.
Nice move.
Andrea, those new headphones?
No, I've had these for about 6 years, 7.
All right, never mind. Literally the entire time we've known each other. Fair enough.
Yeah.
You always wear those?
Yes.
Okay. Good.
Jeez. All right.
I have never noticed how flat and huge they are, and I like it.
Yep. Well, sometimes my hair is like blocking it, you know.
Fair.
Like this.
I see.
You do have. I gotta say, you got phenomenal hair. My God.
It's not that good. It could.
It
be
is. It is long and luscious. As
It's
a
in a
man
bunch
who is
of
jealous
knots
of a
right
lot
now.
of people's
Look
hair.
at this.
Oh, all right,
Oh,
and
wow.
not
I was
okay.
very Rapunzel, and then we go.
I
Now it
feel
looks like Rapunzel having a nervous breakdown.
Yeah, pretty much.
I'm growing my hair out. You can't really tell, but I'm going for the eventually I'll be going for the John Bender.
Oh, okay.
Do you know what I'm talking?
Yeah,
You know what I
Breakfast
mean?
Club, yeah.
That's
Hell
what
yeah.
we'll see. I don't know. We'll see.
Well, I'm losing my hair, so
I might be too. I might be too, but
That's wonderful.
At 50, I was like, let me do something midlife crisis-y.
Is that when you started combing it up like that with the little, you know?
That's just out of necessity.
Oh yeah, it's gorgeous. And Antonio, you got time left, but I feel you.
Yeah.
I can certainly tell that you feel them.
It sucks. I'm gonna burn your house down. It sucks when you have to start asking your barber for different haircuts because the old reliable no longer fits the hairline. Oh,
Did they ever approach that with you? It's like, listen, you know, I don't know how much longer we can keep this up. 5 years ago, we should have switched this haircut, but
did they bring it up?
They didn't. They let me suffer like an idiot with a bad haircut for a while. I had an incredibly awkward conversation because we finished a haircut and I said, this looks like the haircut of a man who's trying to hide the fact that he's bald. And then they said the harsh thing, which is like, well, you're balding. And I was like, I'm saying let's find a different haircut.
Yeah.
All right. We don't have to talk about the specifics
of
the futility of time, but come on.
Patrick Stewart was People Magazine's sexiest man alive several years in a row.
Yeah, you just have to, you have one haircut for 30
There's
years.
a way
You gotta.
Well, I mean, there's some
learning
products on the market today. Now, I don't know. I'm not usually a market enthusiast, but there are some things that you may or may not want to try. you know.
That's the thing. I don't mind balding. I take it back. I don't mind the look of being bald. What sucks is in between. Just getting there is awful.
For sure.
Accelerate.
I mean, that's the problem, is that if I have enough remaining that if I shave it, I look like I don't care for God's chosen people. And I don't want to give that impression.
Well, but Jake, you look so cool with the head
Oh,
shaved and the beard.
You look like a
really.
No, you don't look good. No, you look
do.
very much.
You
like
look
a
cool as
person
shit that way.
with friends in prison that you'd never want to associate with.
You don't have
Jake,
enough
that's
tattoos.
so funny because your caricature in the startup in the intro reminds me of a Hasidic Jew.
I mean,
Yes.
It's just the way the headphones, the way that it's pixelated, and the way that comes
Fair.
through. But, yeah.
Fair. It does look a little.
Jake's been going for that one for years now, so I'm glad you noticed.
It's an honor to be. I am frequently honored by being mistaken as a practitioner of the Jewish faith, but it's stolen valor. Prison, they're in the White House. Yeah, it's fair. That's
So we
fair.
always welcome new folks.
You definitely got a pal.
Yeah, but not in a proselytizing way.
Fair. Yes. Oh, it's so appreciated.
I am a big fan. Now, it's not like a mood board, but I will have a couple of pictures on my phone in times where I wanted to switch up my haircut. I'd go, yeah, something like this. And they're like, oh, thanks for bringing in pictures. But I always have to preface it with, like, I'm not saying I'm Brad Pitt. I'm just saying I like this hair. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I know you can do nothing about the face. I've accepted that. But
I'm not going to walk out of here looking like Michael Fassbender, but that's a cool haircut, right?
You know what? We should go to the barber, go through that whole bit, not mention the fact that we don't think we're going to look like that, and then pull at the end of the haircut when they ask you how it is, pull up the picture again and be like, what can you do about the nose? It's just
you forgot my chin.
yeah. It's what's all this fat still doing here? Oh,
Yeah.
you're not responsible for
It's the worst location.
Oh, sure.
Someone just pointed out that I'm going to be doing a lie detector test on Friday. Have you ever seen one of those, Antonio? It's where I tell stories from my life that can't be true, and like one of them is a lie.
Oh wow, okay. No, I
And
haven't.
so I'm flipping it this time. This is the twist. This time, there's one truth.
Okay.
Yeah.
That'll be
You're
interesting.
running out of stories.
Nah, I just want to have fun. Switch it up.
Do you
a little
have
bit.
like a board with like possibly colored string that like connects your entire life to all the stories you've given on lie detector, how they intersect in any way? Like, or are
Oh.
you just winging it?
Yeah, I'm winging it, but that's kind of interesting.
Okay.
That I don't know. My life's not that interesting. It's just kind of goofy. I don't think people believe goofy.
I'm
You
a
know?
big fan of it's all in how you tell the story. Because I've heard like war veterans tell me the most boring stories about how they
Really?
were shot in combat. It's just
I wish they would have shot you a second time. Shut the fuck up, old man. My lord.
Dude.
But
How about you shot the fuck up?
you're saying I tell a good story.
yeah.
Oh,
You
okay.
do.
Well, yeah,
it
that's
doesn't
the
have to
fun
be an
part.
insane thing. Yeah.
That's the fun part because when it is a lie, I'm clearly just kind of making it up as I go too, which is really, really fun. But anyway.
How's
I like
how's
making
the
things
book
up as
going?
you go.
Oh yeah, Antonio, how's the book? The Andrea, okay, let's just say Andrea was so upset that she wasn't here for that on the last time you were on, because that is totally like a fascinating topic to her. But how is your book going?
Yeah, so I actually got a really good friend in the synagogue to do some really critical edits and reviewing the book for me. So that's a big start. and it's really initiated me to finalize a deadline, which I've set out to be 11 weeks from now. So hopefully that I meet that deadline, and once I do, I will send it off to my editors for professional edits, and then we'll see where I'm at in the process after that. But it's absolutely been thrilling, very fun. And of course, I have a channel now, the Temple Podcast, which is piggybacking off of the book in terms of looking at the late Second Temple of Judaism, the rise of early Christianity, the New Testament, and Islam.
How long
Heck
were you writing this book for?
So I started this book in September of 23. And actually it started based off of, I have a good Catholic friend who's in missionary school. And I just want to actually have a conversation about, yes, that's it there, the Temple Podcast, about our
Is this AI Jesus?
This
Yeah,
is
awesome.
this is AI Jesus.
I
And
think
really try to bring into effect.
Look at that one. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but look at that 1 second from the left. Like, that is awesome.
I think AI
I need to
Jesus
print
sounds
that out
pretty
and put that on my
accurate,
wall.
though.
I want to look that, like, I want to wake up every morning and see that on my ceiling.
But isn't Jesus kind of AI? That might
So-
be insulting.
I just
It should
really
be.
quickly behind that particular one, so people can kind of see where I'm getting at. Okay, so that one you saw where Jesus' body seems to be materializing, you see his muscles materializing out of the ether. This is imagery, AI imagery, and I really try to prompt the AI to design this based off of the book of John, where John, in his incipit, in his introduction, he's explaining the beginning of Jesus. And for John, Jesus is the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And in verses 13 for John, it is the Word that becomes flesh. Now, these are pretty familiar words probably to anybody who's lived in a Christian society, but almost no one knows what this means today.
Right. No, that's a good point. And I think that like I was just watching that short. I approve of the AI imagery here because to me it's like there and you know, correct me if I'm wrong, but
I will.
from I was going to say from his scholarly standpoint, but people are taking all little bits of what they know to be the story of Jesus Christ and kind of forming their own version of it, right? And like people reinterpret this from literally from person to person or household to household even. And so it's like it's kind of how AI works, right? It grabs from all over the place.
Yeah, absolutely. And I thought using AI here would help, because I'm not very artistic myself, would help illustrate how fantastic some of this language is, some of these ideas and concepts, because they really, really are. When John's describing Jesus, his ontology, Jesus for John is a divine instrument through which God uses to bring the universe into being. Now, this may seem kind of alien to us to think about Jesus as being a divine instrument, but this was very familiar in the ancient Greco-Roman world. For example, think about Zeus's thunderbolt or Poseidon's triumph. It was very familiar to the people at the time. It was in the cultural milieu that people understood that gods had divine weapons and instruments through which they created and did things. And so for Christianity, as it takes on this Greco-Roman philosophy into its theology, what we see is that God himself, the Hebraic God, takes on these attributes as well. And so for God of the Jews, it is Jesus the Son who is God's divine instrument for which he creates the world.
Would you say this is okay? I was gonna type a response to the chat, but I'll just mention it. Paulie 10 says this is a religious show now. This is more of an academic angle that you're coming at this from, right? This isn't
Because
like a
I would
spiritual
like to say
religious.
that, like, I shit on religion all the time, but like the historical aspect of how these religions formed is very important. Like, I mean, this
Yeah.
is the study of religion in its most purest way. Is like, how the hell did this come here? And then also, you know, we can extrapolate how it still affects us based on how it originated.
Oh yeah. So this, and I do have to explain this to some of my subscribers too. So the purpose and the aim here is critical. This is critical history. I am
Yeah.
critically interrogating the text. And I have a pastor friend, and one of the things that he tried to say to me was, Antonio, I actually feel like you might really believe that Jesus is the Christ from the things I've heard in your videos. And I said, well, what's interesting about that is everything that I said in my videos, and every single one of my videos, my shorts and my longs, I like I'm talking about stocks. But everything that I said is a heresy and a blasphemy against the church. Now, it just so happens to be interesting that the things that I'm saying come directly from the Bible itself. But that's the point that I'm trying to bring to people. It's that oftentimes how people approach the Bible is through a lens of religious ideologies. And when you take that ideology away and you take on the text and you bring in the history, you get a very different picture, a very different view of these elements than you would find that are typically associated in evangelical circles.
Did I tell you? I may have brought this up last time you were on. Did I tell you about the Book of Genesis comic book adaptation by R.
Yeah.
Crumb? Okay, I did. Yeah. It just because it always strikes me as very funny that people were like, how dare you ridicule the Bible? And he goes, this is the most faithful adaptation I could have possibly done. It took a long time to get it this accurate. If it's offensive to you, I hate to break it to you, but that's your text. Like maybe I haven't read it.
The best microcosm I can have or I can present for what this phenomenon is in the Mormon excuse me, I want to call them correctly, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, where a lot of times you will ask members about stuff that is kind of scandalous or what have you, and they'll say, no, that's not part of this religion. And then they'll come back a week later and be like, I spoke with my elders, and apparently that is part of this religion. But you just have it wrong. They gave me totally different context. It's on a large scale with Christianity in general, particularly since it is such a popular religion. There's so many people out there who, when you quote the Bible verbatim, will be like, blasphemy.
I mean, my first
the weirdest thing.
I actually tried to step into the controversy. So
Yeah.
one of those plain and obvious blasphemies, just reading the Bible, is that Jesus himself, who is considered God for most Christians today, who consider themselves Trinitarian Christians, undergoes a baptism of repentance for the forgiveness of his sins. And when I say this, I just say this to random Christians, and they are shocked. No, that's not in there. What are you talking about? I say, actually, it's Mark chapter 1.
Do they not wonder who John the Baptist is?
This shocks people because they have a preconceived notion, well, Jesus is sinless, therefore he would not be getting baptized for the remission of his sins. But what I tell people is, okay, that's your thought about what the text means before you read it. So now go to chapter 1 of Mark and read verses 1 through 9 yourself, and then tell me what's happening in there. And people they don't even know what to say. They make up incredible reasons that I always remind them, thank you for eloquently articulating that position, but it is not at all evidence in any of the text. The text is very, very clear here that John the Baptist is coming on the scene, according to the early Christians, Mark, Matthew, and Luke, specifically innovating for the first time in history a baptism of repentance for the forgiveness of sins, that is for the coming of Jesus as they understand it, the Messiah. This is specifically for the coming of Jesus. And we see that very plainly in the text. And then Jesus is baptized by John the Baptist under this doctrine in the River Jordan for the remission of his sins.
This is what it feels like to me. It feels like the Star Wars movies exist, and there is a copy, a DVD copy of the original trilogy in every hotel room drawer. And there's people out there who call themselves huge Star Wars fans and insist that other people be Star Wars fans. And then you ask them about Luke Skywalker, and they go, what? Like, they've never once seen the films. Played the games, maybe. Go to the conventions, definitely. But it's just so weird. It's a weird world. And I'm glad there's
like that's the
scholars
thing.
out
Like,
there.
shouldn't you be embarrassed too? Like, shouldn't you, like, when you
You
say
should
you're
be.
a Christian but you've never read the Bible? Like, you know, for me, when I was like 8 or 9, I was like, what is this whole thing about? I started reading the book and I was like, you know, I didn't get it. I didn't get it.
I'd much rather, okay, let's take Capital by Marx. I'd much rather listen to somebody talk about that than read it. I'm just saying. Now, at the same time, I'm not going around calling myself a Marxist, right? Like that, I think you would have to maybe at least take a shot at reading it. But like, you know, I couldn't get past the first few pages without being like sleeper. But
And
if
it's
you
not
listen to
Right.
or people talk about it, like, you know, God, what do you call it when professors get up there and monologue? What the fuck is that called?
Lecture.
Podcasting.
Lecture. Yeah, thank you. God, I spaced it. When
Well
monologue,
done, Andrea.
when they, you know, a lecture, on the other hand, fascinating. I love it.
Look,
Well,
if
what's
you want to
interesting is that
speedrun it,
people say that the Bible is the word of God. And the people who
Right.
say that are not atheists, they're not agnostic, they're not people who would not be interested in the
Yeah.
word of God. These
Yeah.
are the people who are the most interested in the word of God, and they're completely not interested.
It's right in front of them. They carry it with them in their pocket or in their car every second of the day. Maybe,
Never
you know,
read
you
it, but
think
it's
like
with
you maybe, I don't, like, maybe this is the problem with screens, you know, like maybe people need more time or they don't have their cell phone, you know, maybe you can whip out the pocket Bible once more in a while, you know.
when I say that I doubt the sincerity of belief of a lot of Christians, this is what I'm referring to. Because what you just said, it's like, if you honestly forget whether or not you're let's say you care about pleasing God, just set that aside. I know it's nonsensical, but do. You're saying you're of the belief that there is a being out there that created the universe. There's a supernatural entity, and they wrote a book. You're not going to read the book? If freaking Aku from Samurai Jack, an ancient demon, wrote a novella about a private detective, I'd read it. You know, I just want to know what their writing's like. Are they any good? It's shocking to me that people claim to believe, as you said, like, yeah, this is a book, and the author is the Lord, and they're like, yeah, I'll get around to it.
Or
Well, that's the
even-
thing though, is like the status of
I'm on a
like
plane.
the everyone else in the game of Christ, if you will, they haven't read that fucking shit either. The people who are authorities would probably prefer if you don't read it, because then, you know, they retain power. So like,
Well, they'd
who's
like you
going
to
to
read
expect
just
you
the
to read
parts
the
they point
book?
out.
The only one who's going to expect you is an atheist or someone who's trying to do a gotcha.
Yes.
Like everyone in the game, they don't read the book either. So
Or God forbid, somebody who sincerely wants you to follow the instructions of the book, which is, there's
Wow.
very few people who do that.
Well, and that's the thing. And I hope that, you know, as my channel tackles all of the biblical texts, that people realize that many of the approaches that people have, for example, what I call checker book reading, and that's where people will select a verse
I
here
remember that.
and then select another verse in a chapter that's completely irrelevant to that and say, oh, this is what this means. And oftentimes, not only do you destroy the meaning of the text in which you're originally looking, you also destroy the meaning of the text in which you're pulling from. And the harmonization of these concepts, sometimes biblical authors don't have the same point of view. So you have to approach these texts very, very, very carefully if you're going to approach these texts. And a lot of times people don't find themselves doing that. Another thing I was talking about in a separate post was the fact that in the United States, we have an evangelical population that's very pro-life. But if you read the book of Numbers, we are told specifically, this is an abortion if I've ever knew one, that if you suspect that your wife has gotten pregnant in an act of adultery, you are supposed to take her to the priest and, in colloquial terms, have her drink what I call the swell water. And the reason why I call it the swell water is because it literally says that the womb will swell and burst. But
if the baby is not yours.
Right. If the baby is innocent or the baby belongs to you, then this won't happen. But and this is for the Jews, so this is something in our text, and also the Christians because they have our Old Testament, whatever. And what happens is if you are guilty, this will happen. And if you're not guilty, it won't happen. And, for people who are arguing about, 6 weeks, 18, whatever, this doesn't specify. This is right on up to presumably birth. There is no specification at all when this should or should not be prescribed.
Yeah.
So how do people deal with texts like that? I think if you're of the faith, this is something that you need to be aware of and you need to understand, at least from the point of view of not being a hypocrite, right?
And if you're of the faith and you find yourself discussing something like this, and you're saying I'm against abortion because of my religious faith, and then Antonio tells you, well, there's a prescription for abortions in the book in which your faith is based on. Here's what I'm going to ask you to do. Genuinely address this thing. Genuinely, if it's news to you, search your feelings, do further research. If you have to set it aside and say, I need to consider this, then do so. But what I don't want to see people doing is what I see happen every single time, which is you move the discussion somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
You try to distract, you try to bring up something else to argue about, and you do everything possible to make it clear that the truth is not something you're interested in. And your own faith is not something that you're interested in. It's just an excuse you're using for who knows what.
Yeah, because
don't be embarrassed by the fact that somebody knew something you didn't about your own religion. Instead, have an honest conversation about it.
I think these days they would say, and that's very well said, Jake. It just makes me think, and this is going to sound like I'm joking, but these days they would go, well, Jesus didn't have to deal with the radical left when the Bible was written. You know what I mean? That makes everything different. Look at what Biden did. And they would just literally move to that. That's not even like a comedy bit.
My response
that's what happens.
Jesus was the radical left.
Yeah.
That was his whole point. He was the one that was hanging out with the tax collectors, with the prostitutes, with the low bar in society.
Flipping over coin changer tables.
People that certain demographics today would probably be wagging your finger at if they saw you in association with. So sure.
You want to feed the poor for free?
You
get out of here.
Right.
There's no Christian that's going to be handing out fish. And let me withdraw that. It's not all Christians. There's no conservative who claims to be Christian, who I feel is not a Christian, who's going to be out there handing out fish and bread. It's not happening.
Well, one time I was sitting in this I was raised Catholic and worked in the church rectory where I would take calls for the priest, make appointments, that kind of stuff. The collection baskets.
The office of the priest, may I take your call?
Yeah, basically, St. Mary's Church. This is the rectory, and give out prayer cards and so. I was a good little Catholic boy. I was also an altar boy. But then one time, and there was this guy, this brother, they would just let some guys be like a brother, and they didn't really do anything. And he just got to live at the church, and he wasn't a priest. He didn't give mass, but he didn't have much of a function, but he was always there. And he was really quiet. His name was Brother Willie. He was just this little old guy. And he was really quiet. And he would come. I'd work till like 9:30, 10 o'clock at night on weekdays in junior high school. And he would come in there, and it was quiet and just nothing was going on. And he would come in there, sit down on the other side of the desk, and there was like an old school switchboard. It was really fun. And he would like take out a pack of Chesterfields and like throw one to me. And we would sit there and I was in like 7th grade, and we would sit there and smoke together. Yeah. And so one night I was waiting for like my parents to come. Yeah, I was waiting for like my parents to come pick me up, and everything was locked up and the lights were off. And I was sitting in the church, which had accurate constellations painted on the ceiling, which is kind of cool. So it's like the night sky painted on the ceiling of the church. So I was sitting in there just kind of looking up, and I remember lying down in the pew so I could look up, and I heard somebody come in. It was open at all times, but it was really close to downtown Annapolis. And I was like, that could be like a rough place at night because it's a drinking town, you know what I mean? But so I kind of look up, and this guy had come in. He was looking around. He had like a hanger that was like undone, and he went to the collection box and was like fishing dollars out of there, like literally. And I just was like, yeah, go for it, dude. What are you gonna do? I was like, it's here for you, I guess.
Yeah.
We called them poor boxes back in the day. They were like, yeah, so put $1 in the poor box. And I'm like, I don't know if we should be calling it the poor box, but
it is accurate though. I mean, what is it there for otherwise?
Yeah, I guess.
Fair.
But anyway,
yeah, being too blunt can be rude. Fair enough.
I always wonder. It kind of fun. Like I always wonder who that guy was. I knew everybody in that town, even at that age. I would go get people, like houseless guys that would just hang out on the basketball court all night to buy us beer. Like you give them $20 and they get you $15 a beer.
Yep.
Then you give them one.
Wait, $15 for a beer?
Of beer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this was in the 80s. This was the late 80s, though.
Definitely rock and rolling off of that.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, I just think, like, I wonder, though, when you turn a book like that in, like, who's working on your book, like editors and stuff like that, or is there an opportunity for somebody to be like, this is totally offensive? I would never work on this book.
So what I've been talking about is mostly the material on the show, which is adjacent to the book. The book specifically takes on the question of, is Jesus the Jewish Messiah? Which there is a lot of offense there. So I am wondering how my editors will respond. Will they want to soften some of my rhetoric, the way that I talk about some of these issues, to invite a larger audience? Because ultimately it is aimed to Jews, to Christians, and also to Muslims too, because Muslims have an interesting view on Jesus.
Well, so what do you? I mean, you don't have to talk about this, but do you consider it a compromise that you'd be willing to make, or a compromise to your hard work that you wouldn't make?
Well, it depends. So maybe with some wording, I can always adjust that. But in terms of concepts, ideas, and resolution of the text, that won't change. Yeah.
So you don't know if they're going to be offended or find something offensive, whether they're offended personally or not. So you're just sort of like, here we go. Or you just
I have no idea. For example, if one of the editors might himself, but actually the publications that I'm sending them to, I had vetted through a couple of professors at Appalachian State who are in the religions department. So they have, editors that would be interested, and they told me that they would actually be interested in taking on material like this. So I think the chances are that they'd probably be a little less offended by the material.
To what degree do extinct genres come into your work? Like, do you find yourself talking about apocalyptic fiction or anything like that? Obviously, the Messiah search is the central focus of the book.
So one of the things that I do for people, and this is a pretty easy concept, is I take this idea of the term son of God. Okay. Now, this term to us, I'm sure, already brings immediate imagery of a certain figure to people's minds. But this term is ubiquitous in the Greco-Roman world and the ancient Mediterranean. And people are using this term to describe the Pharaoh, who is the son of God Ra, R-A, the sun god in the Egyptian pantheon. But also Augustus, who will name himself, or excuse me, Octavius, who would name himself Augustus, will call himself the son of a god after Caesar, of course, is deified by the Roman Senate.
Really getting loose with those.
Hercules,
especially since Caesar had a triumph where someone specifically told him, but it's fine.
Well, I mean, but that happened all the time in the ancient and Roman Empire, is that for, very interesting reasons, late emperors, or in Caligula's case, even during your life, might get exalted as a god. So there was a spectrum of gods. Hercules, of course, the son of God, the son of Zeus, right? So throughout the ancient Mediterranean world, this term son of God is being used throughout many of the different cultures, which are actually, of course, relating to each other, interacting with one another. And of course, in Israel, in ancient Israel, the Jews too are using this term son of God, or in Hebrew, Ben Ha-Elohim. So this term is very familiar throughout all of the different religions and cultures in the ancient Mediterranean. So the question we then have to ask is, when we see Son of God being used in the New Testament, how then do the authors use it? Do they use it in the Egyptian sense? Do they use it in the Greek sense? Do they use it in the Roman sense? Or are they using it in a Jewish sense, right? And so it takes a lot of historical excavation to try to contextualize and answer that question appropriately.
I cannot wait to read this thing, man.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that. Like, I need to get my hands on this. I wonder if it's worth, like, every time I turn in like designs, right? Like, somebody wants a logo, I never just go, here you go. I always, there's like stages, right? Like, and I provide the stages. Here's like my sketch of it, a couple of different ideas. Here's some different variations. This is where I landed. And here it is, like, on products and with different fonts. You know what I mean? I try and present that, but I always do like a little write-up at the beginning, just to be like, this is what I think your brand deserves. This is what I wanted to contribute to your brand identity. Blah, blah, blah. Here's, I tried
sounding like corporate Matt here.
Yeah, but I don't want to just put it in front of them and go, look at it. I want them to hear a story first. And so I wonder, like, if I was sending off a manuscript like yours, if I wouldn't put some sort of letter at the beginning, and what would you write in that letter? Like, do you do that? Is there like, I assume you're emailing it, but would you email it with some note? Like, you don't write any body of the email, or?
This is a really good question. I'm going to have to probably think about that. Ask some of my professors how they would approach submitting this for edits, because it is a pretty lengthy book. It's over 120 pages so far. It can be pretty dense material, very specific subject matter. Do you just throw it at somebody?
You say, good luck. Let me know when you're finished.
So I don't know. That part of the process will be new to me for sure.
Yeah, because I mean, it's like, I don't know how the book is segmented, but if it were in parts that were like heightened the experience, so to speak, not like I know it's not like a thriller, but if one part if it's progressively more controversial to somebody, then maybe you could just, I don't know, an outline of sorts, like, I don't know. Like in chapter 1, I attempt to in chapter 2 and in chapter 3. And so therefore chapter 2 may be a little weird, but to stand on its own, but it could stand alone. I don't know, something like that. Like just be kind of matter of fact, but also letting them know like this might be the controversial part. I don't know. Fuck them. Just send it off.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some chapters. One chapter in particular is extremely controversial, and it's my attempt to figure out, well, if Jesus isn't, then who is he? And that gets very controversial. So maybe I should lead and let people know that, because it goes actually outside of the question of answering directly, is Jesus the Jewish Messiah? If I'm trying to pontificate, well, who might then he have been?
I think that's within the scope. If I, as a consumer, if I picked up the book and there was 2 chapters on if not, then what, I wouldn't be like, what is this?
Actually, there's exactly 2 chapters that are if not, then what.
There you go. As your test case, I think you're good to go, but maybe talk to the professionals.
I think we may have touched on something here, and I would be glad to know that this did or didn't help, but talking it out. But I think most people would lead with that controversial part as, yeah, this is going to be hot. People are going to hate read my book. You know what I mean? Now now all the conservatives are going to buy it so that they can condemn it, and that'll be great.
Like it burn it.
Yeah, like all popularity is good popularity, right? But you may write something in like a letter, and I'm not telling you what to do. It's just fascinating to me, like how would one approach this? But you could say something like if I were to be as controversial with my work as possible, the whole book would be these 2 chapters. But I hope that anyone reading it would see what precedes that and what comes after the subsequent material is proof that I am not just trying to be a controversial figure or author. I'm not trying to be like the shocking like book of the year because holy shit, did you see what that guy said? I want people to actually go, oh wow, okay, this is interesting.
I think you have an opportunity to make the really diehard evangelicals, I'm talking like the flat earthers, not be angry at you. It's if you just say this is based off all the evidence we currently have available, because they will set up an entire life based on the fact that there's going to be some book uncovered that says actually John from Tennessee was right this whole time, and the gays are evil. Like all the information we currently have, I don't know. I'm just fucking around. I thought of a funnier response from earlier to the 2 chapters thing. I hacked Antonio's computer and already read the
book. Well, I mean, maybe I'm wrong here, Antonio. Do you want to be that guy? Do you want to be the controversial guy that everyone's talking about on right-wing media and stuff like that? Get the book out there.
I definitely don't mind defending my positions in front of large audiences. That's something that I've had to do throughout my life. And any position that I've written in print, I would be more than willing and able to defend. If that were the case.
If, say, Modern Day Debate got a hold of you and was like, we have somebody that wants to talk to you, you'd be down for that in the future?
Absolutely.
Okay.
To me, that these ideas are controversial. I understand them to be controversial. That's why I'm tackling this in my podcast. But also, I do want to be sensitive to the fact that because I am Jewish, people may project my views onto the Jewish community or to the Jewish faith. And I don't want to be responsible for that. These are my views, and I want to be responsible for taking them on in that sense.
Fair enough.
So I do think about what is the best approach. What is approach that I think will satisfy my aim, but also be within reason in terms of the broader ecumenical, if I can use that word, dialogue between these different faith groups.
And just for the devout Christians who have recently joined us, your aim is to kill God. Is that correct?
Yeah. Full support. He obviously isn't doing us any good. Let's keep it moving.
I don't know why it's one of our favorite things to do on the show to absolutely throw our guests under a bus.
Well, I mean, that's what this whole show is here for. We built the intersection.
Yeah.
We contracted the bus depot, and
make life unnecessarily more difficult. Yeah.
I hope nobody clips that. Yeah, I think that's very interesting. I think it's, to me, it's a little wild that people are relying on. Okay, so on the one hand, look at Jake's point that the guy who is responsible for all this left a book and you haven't read it. Come on, obviously there's stuff you're gonna want to read about in there. But on the other hand, the entity that created everything, the whole universe, and who knows what's out there, left us a fucking book. Really?
By that token,
it's
didn't
not
he
very
write every
impressive.
book?
Yeah, it's just not that impressive. Like, I want.
Why didn't he leave a podcast instead? You know,
or something we can interpret. I don't know.
Bunch of
archaeologists. Jesus here. Now this may be a little confusing, but just so you know,
but it is
real.
Yeah, it's like you may interpret this a million ways.
That reminds me from that, just a little flashback from Family Guy. It's I think it's the Jay Leno show, and Jay Leno says, "And our next guest died for your sins, Jesus Christ." And Jesus Christ walks out on stage.
Just all right, like an Indiana Jones style opening, pan down. It's some desert somewhere. Somebody uncovers ancient Sumerian ancient Sumerian flash drives or whatever, and we plug it in. We find out, yeah, actually, God left us a podcast as well, meant to be discovered when we're ready for it. We play the thing, and it's just he's just honking on a joint like. You ever think that we don't even need to pay taxes?
Yeah. I love how, all TV shows nowadays say, stay tuned after for the podcast about this episode, that would be really good if that was the beginning of the Bible. And so you're like, I got to get through this fucking book.
That's funny. Commentary on the writing process.
Yeah. I'm going to get the geographic location of this area wrong. It was either in Masada or Qumran, but it's in Israel. And what archaeologists found was at one of the ancient altars. This is where the priests would go and make sacrifices, and they would light incense with this oil. And they found a lot of cannabis material in the oil.
There you go.
Red curtain.
You're just thinking, wait, so the priests were hotboxing the altar?
Let's go.
What's going on there? But
that's the thing. When you think about it, drugs will make, if you really do believe in all this God stuff, and you don't have any Richard Nixon drugs are bad for you in your head, you're thinking, well, hell yeah, this is going to make me see God face to face. Like, why would you not put drugs why would you not hotbox the altar?
Well, again, ancient people people project what we think are conservative values. So people just assume, well, people were more conservative in the past, like 50 years ago. So people have to be ultra conservative 2,000 years ago. But people have actually very, very, very different views about psychedelics in the ancient world, especially when it comes actually to religious rituals, than we would have today. I mean, even today, you go to a church or even a synagogue, and people replace the wine with grape juice.
I mean, To what Andrea is saying, though, it makes sense. Like you smoke a thing and your whole mind functions differently for like 20, 30 minutes or whatever it is. It's really not an illogical thing to think like this could be connected with a deep religious understanding.
Yeah,
So
God sent me this mushroom, and that's why I'm consuming it in the altar.
Yeah.
So how do the munchies fit into this? Because that's like a definite part of it, right? Is that a religious
Well, if they were my
experience?
ancestors,
Wolf in a
the
bag of
munchies are
chips?
indistinguishable from just being awake.
In the Mithras cult, they would have these elaborate dinners. And then after these dinners, they would go into these very, very prolonged drinking orgies. And they would, the reason why they'd prolong it because they would mix water in with the wine so that they could continue to drink it without getting intoxicated too fast. And so they could kind of party on throughout the night. And a lot
Against
of times,
all
these
odds, I found religion.
were mixed with, not the safest ingredients. So sometimes they would have these extra mystical ointments in them as well that would induce, I'm sure, some sort of psychedelic effect. So we would see these type of things happen throughout the ancient world.
I'm sorry, I never got past the drunken orgies as religious ritual. I am joining the Mithras cult. Starting it up again.
So there you go.
Sometimes old is good.
It's been a while.
Yeah, and then there are a whole bunch of different versions of kind of the same religion, and then like all religions have basically been, you could all go, man, it's kind of the same story, right? Just different names, and you gotta wonder like if the phone tree happened. And I don't want to play down people's faith and belief, but like going way back to a point, there was probably a moment where there were fewer religions. I don't know. And like some of this stuff just I mean, I don't even care about it enough to speculate. But like I think I don't know, it's like frustrating to me that people just want to put everything they have into something that's ancient. Like God created the universe and that's still expanding. And this planet and people, and we're evolving and everything's like running a course, but we have to buy into and adhere to this book that doesn't update. And it's just as old as the day it was written. Like, fuck that. Like, that to me is really frustrating. I don't get that.
Well, it's frustrating to me when people align their views with ancient texts in a way that, first of all, the ancient text is not saying anything on what's happening today. Sometimes I've encountered people who are fundamentalist Jews and Christians who tell me that climate change can't be happening because it's not in the Bible. That's the sort of response that I get from that. And I'm just thinking, my gosh. And there's more people who think like that than, of course, there are people who
But isn't climate change actually in the Bible? Like there's floods, like they talk about like all this fucking ancient, like the
That's like saying
Bronze Age collapse is mentioned in there. Like, there is climate change in the Bible too.
It's also like saying Dairy Queen doesn't exist because it's not in the Bible. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, that's actually a good point.
Right. Well, you can extend that and say you don't exist because you're not in the Bible.
There you go.
I used to, on a slow day, if Jehovah's Witness came to my door, I would like question them and ask some questions about it. Not given a third degree, but one time I kind of did. I was like, so you guys don't celebrate holidays like everyone else does? And they were like, nope. And I was like, you don't celebrate Halloween? They said, nope. And I was like, no, I guess you don't like when people walk up to your door.
Nah.
How about this? A priest, a minister, and a rabbit walk into the bar, and the bartender says, I think this joke has a typo.
It's been a while since I've had to break this out.
Oh.
I quite enjoyed it, if I'm honest. I did enjoy that.
Yeah, I don't know. Back to the munchies, though. I do think if your body is a temple, then eating pancakes at midnight is a form of prayer. I do think that's totally acceptable. I do.
Yeah. Yep.
John the Baptist, pancakes and honey.
He was
Yeah.
eating pancakes at
See?
1:32 a.m.
I was actually right, and I didn't even mean to be. But look, what about okay? So Antonio, you put up a post on your YouTube that said which book? I think it was Mark. Which book doesn't have Jesus Christ being baptized?
John. John is the answer.
So, but he was the Baptist.
So John,
Just another day at work.
the Gospel of John, according to church tradition, is written by John, the son of Zebedee, not John the Baptist. So those are two separate characters. But interestingly,
I forgot that part.
John will not have John the Baptist baptizing Jesus, and he does that for very specific theological reasons.
No, it's seriously
What
like
are they?
it's like the Lord of the Rings where you'll mix up names. I'm serious. Like it's
Well,
these
how
are
many
books I've read
Marys-
that are confusing.
How many Marys are in the Bible?
Yeah, right. There's that too. Yeah, just a popular name, I guess.
You know, so
Let me
that
see if
happens
I
a
can-
lot.
What would the reason be?
Yeah, what would the reason be for that?
Would the reason be that they did not want there to exist baptisms before Jesus Christ? Is that it?
So what's happening is that we know that John the Baptist was very likely a real historical figure. He's even recorded in Josephus's Antiquity of the Jews and in the Jewish Wars. And so we know that John the Baptist was likely a very large and looming figure.
Have
Interesting.
they found out he was a sex pest? He got canceled.
Well, he gets beheaded.
Okay.
He gets canceled in the worst way. And actually, it is actually over a statement he makes about an affair, not an affair he does, but whatever. But anyways, what happens is that the Christians clearly don't want, and you can see evidence of this in the New Testament. They do not want Jesus having been baptized by John the Baptist. That is an embarrassing historical moment for the Christians. And so they have to interpret Jesus being baptized theologically. And this is what's interesting. If you put the Gospels in their historical order, so Mark is our earliest Gospel, then Matthew, Luke, and John, each gospel will present an elevated view about the baptism. So for Mark, Jesus will actually become the Son of God and the Christ at his baptism in the River Jordan by John the Baptist. By the time that we get to Matthew and Luke, about 10 to 15 years later, what they will do is push back Jesus's godship when he becomes the Son of God to his divine conception and virgin birth, because Jesus is being baptized at age 30. What John will do, now this is important when I was telling you about in terms of understanding the Greco-Roman world. So Mark, Jesus is an exalted man. In Matthew and Luke, Jesus is a demigod. How do we know? Because in the social cultural milieu of the ancient Mediterranean, demigods are born out of unions between gods and humans, like Hercules, for example. So John's coming in much later. We're getting John. Mark's written about 67 to 70. Matthew and Luke are written about 75 to 85. John is written about 90 to 100 CE or AD. So for John coming in so late, he has an extremely high Christology. For him, Jesus wasn't born of a virgin. He's beyond that. For him, Jesus is fully divine at the beginning of the universe, and he materializes out of the ether into the man Jesus. And because he's already God, he doesn't need a baptism for the remission of his sins. And so what John will do is John will cross out. In John, there is no virgin birth. In John, there is no baptism for the remission of Jesus' sins. Everything that would aid and give authority to Jesus through other biblical props, all of that's done in John. For John, Jesus is Led Zeppelin. He is the opening act now. So he doesn't need all those other supports like we find in the other Gospels.
So
Now,
is this why we get creepy adult-looking baby Jesus in a lot of medieval paintings?
Yeah. But
Well,
this
because-
is John the fisherman.
Yes,
not,
John the fisherman, not John the baptizer.
I think, yeah.
We were talking about updates earlier.
No,
This got an update. This religion got an update 1,000 years after it started.
I think religious imagery is a trip. And you know, this is a kid who would get bored in church and look at stained glass mirrors, right? The stations of the cross and that sort of thing. And it's just like there's so much influence from like European cultures on so much of this stuff that's not European, right? And like now, like you see, you know, you can find Republican Jesus on Wikipedia, and it's like, you know, the guy's got like a MAGA hat on, right? It's just embarrassing, but like it was embarrassing anyway, because there's no way you have blonde hair and a little mustache, and that's not the guy, right? Like I find it so funny. But then there are images that probably because I saw them at an impressionable age really like calm me. Like I find them very calming. Like there was one of Jesus like talking to some kids and there's all these sheep around, and the cynical adult me would go, oh yeah, we're all the sheep, right? We're just a bunch of mindless sheep. But like that picture was like really well painted, and it was this big painting that hung up in the church. So I don't know, it's like for me there's things that I appreciate, but I have an understanding that it's kind of like this is an actual comparison I'm going to make. It's like watching an episode of Seinfeld and really liking it while knowing Jerry Seinfeld's a piece of shit. You know what I mean? Like, like I don't know. I wouldn't say it's as conflicting as that actually.
Well, it's the power of propaganda too, you know, like paintings,
that's what it is.
Like we're not, you know, like in the ancient world, paintings were a thing, but like in the medieval world, like, you know, paintings were really like centralized, like the skill of how to become like an excellent painter was really centralized in like you had to be rich or at least born rich, or you had to be trained, you know, from a young age to just have the skill to paint this kind of stuff. And so, you know, they wouldn't let that skill go to waste. They're not going to have the best painters in the world paint like, you know, some horseshit. They're going to paint about Jesus and all that stuff.
Yeah, and it's like it's occasionally relatable. Like Joseph had service in Pharaoh's court, which means there was probably tennis back in the Bible days, which is very cool to me. I fucking love tennis.
Yeah, I mean, and
that was a very in tennis joke. Service being a phrase for serving the ball. Matt's a monster and will go to hell. I don't know if religion is true or not, but if there's not a hell, one's made for Matt for that joke.
Andrew, on your point on the propaganda, what's interesting is the Gospels. They indicate that they are themselves propaganda. That these, specifically, we are told that these were written so that you might believe. The gospel authors don't understand that they are recording history in a sort of sober sense. For them, they are writing, that's why they're called gospels. We're writing the good news. We are writing this so that you might believe.
Well, a lot of like ancient literature in that time period of like, you know, 200 BC to 200 AD is that kind of like they, for the first time, they have like books and writing, and then they also have like this perceived past that they can connect to. And like that was a huge thing of moralizing the past, the great battles, the great kings, like all these events that happened and how they shaped the modern world. In that time, that was the modern world, right? So it's like, yeah, like the idea of like writing history as history is was less like, you know, like the concept of history as like these are the facts of the matter was less of a thing than it is now. The history is more so just like where we as a culture like came from, and it's like, you know, you can just write that at any time, you know.
What we call history is only 200 years old, or so. It's really a product of the Enlightenment. It's empirical history. That is completely new. That's not something that, even when I read, Josephus, who actually is engaged in something that we would understand as a form of history, trying to look at, for example, how many people died in Jerusalem when it was sacked by the Romans in 70 CE. Well, if you look at Tacitus, you find that it was between 200,000, 500,000. Josephus tells us likely 1 million Jews died in Jerusalem, but our best archaeology tells us that Jerusalem was likely a city between 20 to 30,000 people, and maybe during the pilgrimage holidays up to 100,000 people. So how do you?
But it's also like at this time, did they even know like what 1 million people even was? Like, what is 1 million? And then also, what did that even look like? You know, like in Rome's like most populous moment, they had about 1 million people in Rome, but like, is that what they would have assumed 1 million people was, like the entire city? Like how, like what do they even, you know, like it's just 1 million is just a huge ass number, you know?
I have a feeling a lot of this has to be somebody, like, you have that initial thing that happens with like generals where they say there was more people there than there was, but you have to imagine there was somebody like, oh, I was at the Battle of Cressy. They said there was 20,000 people there when there was maybe, I don't know, half that or whatever. And then thinking then for the rest of their life, like, that's what 20,000. So when they see this place get sacked, right now, if you and I wanted to know what 10,000 people looks like and be accurate, we could go to a ball game that's full and be like, all right, that's about 10,000 people. It's just interesting, Andrea, that you bring up. They might have no frame of reference for estimating something like that.
And now so Josephus was very traveled. He would be one of our best people to try to give us a frame of reference. But you're right. Trying to imagine, I mean, even right now, you imagine 100,000 people in your head. That's a very difficult thing to do. What is the difference when you're doing it like that? What is the difference between 100,000 and 1 million? The point that we take away as historians is that this was an apocalyptic event for the Jewish Commonwealth, for the Jewish people, culminating ultimately in the destruction of the nation of Israel in 70 CE by the Romans.
Hey, what do you know about this? This is my good friend Scorpio Steele, comic book creator from back in Colorado. If you haven't discussed it yet, could you please discuss if the Apocalypse of John was a metaphorical discussion of the Jewish revolt against Rome, not perpetual prophecy?
Great question.
So, well, obviously that's very true with a lot of biblical texts, right? So the Apocalypse of John is mostly actually brought to us, to popular audiences, through the book of Revelations. Now, I do not at all believe that the author of the book of John wrote the book of Revelations, but according to church tradition, John, the son of Zebedee, is also the author of the book of Revelation. And what we see in the book of Revelations, which is quite apart from the rest of not just the Gospels, but from the rest of the Christian texts, which are very pro-Roman, the book of Revelations is not pro-Roman. The book of Revelations has the beast of the Antichrist being Rome.
Yeah. This is why I was talking about genre earlier, by the way. I'm so happy somebody asked this.
Yeah, so certainly the book of Revelation is essentially a story of the underdog, right? That those that were trampled by Rome will be trampled by God in the returning of Jesus Christ, right? And so what we start to get, and that's why the book of Revelations, likely written between us from 110 to 120, it's quite a bit of ways away from the Jewish wars or the destruction of Jerusalem. And so where the Gospels have to be very discreet about how they paint people like, for example, Pontius Pilate, who had no problem killing Jews in the worst way, and the Gospels paint him very favorably. Well, that type of sentiment ends by the time that we get to the Book of Revelations, and now biblical authors are taking on Rome more directly.
That's why. See, this is why I find it very difficult to rely on such old text when something so powerful, like the only thing that was left behind to really get a beat on what God had in mind is this thing that could be reinterpreted over and over, and a lot of the interpretation came in translation. Like, I think we talked about this last time you were on as well, as the King James version. Like, King James was kind of like not into it. And so what he was interpreting, like, or translating, it's like, well, how many of us are reading like the totally wrong version of it by a guy who may have intentionally done it? Like, when they say heaven, aren't they talking about like the visible sky? Right? Like, I don't know. It's like, how accurate was that, and why should we be so locked into it? Like, there are, I forget where I heard this recently. There was some argument over whether you can have a morals in society without religion. And I think you can. But I've had people in my life tell me, like, you would not have any morals if not for the Bible. And I was like, well, then the Bible should be responsible for everything, even the bad stuff, right? Like, are you saying like the bad stuff, it was all bad, then the Bible, then we had a balance? Like, how does that fucking play out? It's just people just reinterpret over and over. And that's where I feel like ending the conversation as it pertains to this ancient text and saying, let's talk about it like in a fresh perspective. Like, let's make shit up on our own here. Like, surely we can come up with something more interesting than how we disagree about why would we have been left this puzzling book like that, or anything that doesn't evolve with the world and life. And it just seems so like it's a glaring plot hole. You know what I mean?
I am
like,
willing.
I can't get past it.
Here's the thing. I'm willing to buy a a fantastical interpretation of the Bible, where if you genuinely believe in supernatural things, then you could open up the Bible and all the words have been changed tomorrow. And all people's memories of what the words said also changed because it's a supernatural book. I'm willing to believe that, so long as the person I'm talking to is willing to have a serious conversation about it. Like, all the stuff that as an atheist, like I find, I assume this particular crowd will tend to agree with me on when it comes to, like, what does it say? What events is it referencing? I'll put that in one container for a conversation. But before we even get to that, where we're talking about specifics, I just want to make sure that I'm talking to people who genuinely believe in this religion, and not people who pretend to believe so that they can get a free cultural pass to do whatever awful thing they want to do.
Yeah, no,
and I find scholarly works like what you're doing, it separates the charlatans from the people with a genuine interest, whatever your final conclusions are.
Yeah, like if let's say like Jesus returned, right? The Messiah has returned. That's what we're all waiting on, right? So he would one say, Antonio Reed, is he here? Yeah. Hey, that book, not cool, man. Please take that off the shelves. Also, what's with all the questions, you guys? I left you the Bible. It's all in there. Like, you can't. I'd be like, but Jesus, that shit doesn't make sense, and we've been arguing over it all along. It's reinterpreted. Which version? And he's like, yeah, you're right. Okay, Antonio Reed, that book, please take it off the shelf. Also, the King James version, that's kind of fucked up. So go back before that when it made sense. Like, you can't tell me like I if Jesus comes back and he's at all rational and fits into our present day world at all, he would be like, dude, the letter hack's right. That book is fucking wildly inaccurate and weird and full of plot holes and loose ends and open-ended shit. And I'm sorry, you're right. That doesn't make
Then that's a related note. How easy is it for you to find passages from the Bible in their translated accurately from their original wording? Because you got Greek to deal with, and I presume that you don't speak Greek. So how do you can you find, like, is it easy to find Bibles that are not like, oh, this was written in modern vernacular because it was rewritten, it was translated in like 1920 or something?
Well, that does happen often, right? So there's a new King James. You get revised versions of different Bibles often, so that does happen. So translation is an interesting issue. The closest thing that does come up to to use this word, a miracle, is the fact that we have what's called the Messianic text by the Masoretes. The Messianic text was developed by the Jewish people, by the rabbis, and basically it's just Hebrew, modern, quote unquote, modern Hebrew versions of the ancient Hebrew text. Now, what's interesting is that our earliest surviving copy of the Masoretic text comes from the 9th and 10th century. Okay, so let's say 900 to 1,000 years after the death of Jesus and the destruction of the temple, the Jewish temple. Well, we recently found in the 1950s, in the middle of the century, of the last century, the Dead Sea Scrolls, right?
Yeah.
And what's interesting about the Dead Sea Scrolls is that when it comes to the text, because there's been a big argument, for example, with Isaiah 53 or Isaiah 7:14, does it say virgin or does it say young woman? In the Greek, it says virgin. In the Hebrew, the Masoretic text, it says young woman. Well, the Dead Sea Scrolls, many of those biblical texts were written not just literally hundreds of years before Jesus was born. Okay, so well before the writing of the New Testament. And what we found is, although the Jews, we had lost their manuscript tradition for 1,000 years, it was nearly identical. What secular historians described as the Masoretes of the 9th and 10th century were able to remarkably preserve the Dead Sea tradition.
Wow.
Now, that doesn't happen anywhere in history, where a people have ancient texts that are, their originals are lost to them for over a millennia, and where we do pick up the tradition 1,000 years later, it's almost exactly where they left it off. So that's been incredible to find, is how much the Jewish Masoretes and the rabbis have been able to maintain their tradition, actually, despite being in the worst situation to do so, right? Because the Jewish homeland was destroyed, and after 135 CE, the Bar Kokhba revolt, the Jews were actually forced into diaspora. They were scattered across the Roman Empire. So actually, and then of course, as Europe Christianized, being a Jew was really a terrible thing. I mean, people think about the Inquisitions being against just heretics and some witches, but also if you were Jewish, the Inquisition was for you. The Crusades, if you were Jewish, European pogroms. So the fact that the Jews were able to maintain this tradition, which is already complex, it's a writing tradition, and they had to do so in such fraught times is kind of incredible.
I think we should all get together and agree to give the Jews like 100 years of a breather. You know, just lay off them for like 100 years. It's been, I think we could all agree that the Jews have had an unfairly difficult history. Lot of genocides for no reason. Lot of, I think there was some slavery involved.
Well, we did kill God, according to the New Testament. There is that.
Yeah,
Hey,
how long is God going to be mad about it, though? Really,
I do feel like the world's getting worse as far as people giving each other a break. I just cannot believe it.
Jews.
It's like
it's always the Jews getting it last. Let's start with them. They could have a lovely time. For 100 years is not much in the scale. They were wandering around the desert for 40. Like just a weekend of not fucking with a group of people.
Weekend at Barney's.
So I would like it if. So let me be clear though, because as confusing as I personally think it is to rely on the Bible, there are ministers and preachers out there who use the Bible in a very positive manner. It's not all fear mongering and doom and gloom and you're going to go to hell if you don't do this. I mean, there's a lot of positive stuff out there. I know people who do this very positively, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's just really confusing to me. Like, I don't want to diminish somebody's ability to use any text to convey a message or help people have the tools they need to get by, especially now when it's like, yeah, whatever gets you through the night. Like, I get it. But the whole, as soon as people try to, I don't know, pushing on me is the right word, but spread the good news in my direction, it's like, I could pick that apart forever. And I don't have the energy for it. And that's why I don't bother with it altogether. You know what I mean? But I do think there are ways to, like, I recommend comic books all the time, but I'm not saying it was real, but you can learn from it. So, okay, what if the Bible's not real? Well, you can learn from that. But I think it's people who are trying to, really get you to buy into the religion. It's like, okay, now we have to go to your church, right?
I just think it's when somebody's like, if this person believes X, I can get $10.
Yeah,
that's when the devil works their way into
the Bible says 3 or more people are all that's needed to have a church, right? To 3 or more people worshiping God or coming together to worship in his name is what you need for church. And I'm like, right, because one person has to be in charge of it all. And so you need like 3. So one person's in charge and 2 are followers, right? And it's the hierarchy that always kind of threw me off.
Who were the now dead sect of Christianity? The Cathars, I think. Hold on.
So many dead sects of Christianity.
I'm just gonna admit to not recognizing half of the names and terms that have been used tonight, but I am following along.
Shout out to
I'm gonna just say that I think if Christianity is true, the Cathars were correct. And if I'm wrong, may God strike me down. Right?
Oh, good one. That guy. Well,
goddamn God.
I'm glad he was here. I'm glad he was here when he was. I thought this was a funny comment. There's a long Jewish tradition of never letting things go, not throwing anything away. No, you cannot see my office right now. I am very obsessed with no clutter. All you have to do is live in a house. For me, all I had to do was live in a house for 23 years and then move and realize I don't need all this stuff, right? And I moved from an 800 square foot house to a
Oh, wow.
much larger house, and I love all this space, right? Like everything is right where it belongs. Nothing is piled up unnecessarily. And I'm sort of a nut about it. Like, it aggravates the people I live with. My family's like, dude, come on. I'm like, why is this paintbrush here? And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, we have like a whole room for paintbrushes downstairs. Put this
Oh,
shit
you have a
in
whole
the paint.
room, the paintbrush room.
We
Yeah, I'll
actually
just
do.
go right on. Can you show us the paintbrush room? Is
It's
that
on the other
possible?
side of this wall.
Oh, it's on the other side of the wall.
It's a
Okay.
hobby shop right on
Hmm.
the other
Is
side of
that
this
for a
wall. Hobby
library? It
room.
looks nice in there. I like that.
Wow.
Yeah, this is the library. I've got more bookshelves I've been putting up around the room. It's pretty cool. I could fit 2 couches in here, 2 sectionals.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's good size.
I know. It's nuts. It's like, I was like, this is, in South Carolina, a 4,000 square foot house is worth a lot less than an 800 square foot house in Colorado, where I was.
Jesus.
Yeah, a lot. And it's skewed, but so I have all this room. So, let's make sure everything's where it belongs, right? It's not difficult.
In the paintbrush room. What other kind of rooms do you have for various things? I missed the first half of that story, so.
Well, I mean, there's just, I have a wet bar in this room. So if anybody wants a cocktail, come on over. But no, this is kind of neat, right? And I've given a tour of this on members only streams. There's a door right here that leads to a hobby room that turns into a hallway for storage, and it wraps all the way around this bookshelf right here and goes under my front porch.
Oh.
So the basement I'm in now is 200 square feet larger than upstairs because it extends under the front porch. So it's kind of cool. It's like I can walk behind that bookshelf. So one day, this door that I keep pointing to off camera is going to be a bookshelf that moves to reveal the doorway.
Oh, you gotta do it.
I gotta do that, right?
Yeah, be a James Bond house. Then.
It's gonna be awesome. They'll be like, "What the fuck is in here?" It's gonna be awesome. I have 2 doors. I'm gonna do that too on either end of the room.
Oh god, that also just reminded me of that new movie Heretic. Did you?
I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, that's a good movie.
Yeah. Secret rooms.
Yeah. In a basement.
I'm just always thinking of Batman. I just want like a clock that leads to a cave. You know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff. So bookshelves that lead to rooms. Pretty neat. I don't know. It's like a feature. If I ever sell the house, people are going to be like, "That's the coolest part."
For sure.
They'll be like, "Why is there a draft coming through
as far
this
as like the bang for your buck, it's like, well, the electrical system is a little outdated. On the other hand, it does have the secret bookshelf that moves.
They'll call it the bookshelf house, right?
Yeah.
They'll say there's a library downstairs that leads to a secret room, and they'll be like, "What?"
And then you hide an old book in there, and then they find it. Well, this is what you got to do. You have to like hide something in the wall, like it's in the secret room, inside the wall, in the secret room, and it's like a diary. You just make it all up. Maybe make it AI generated. Maybe
make it a New Testament Bible. Nobody's ever going to touch that.
Exactly. There you go. There you go. But it's like, and then it's like, they find this, like, let's say 80 years from now, you're long dead. They try calling somebody. They don't know what's going on. What is this book? And then it's a new religion.
I think that I've seen like kitchen, like islands in kitchens, like an island counter where you can move it. And there's stairs that go down to like a room and stuff like that. That's cool, but that seems more like security purposes. Like I was just trying to make it look cool. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think IKEA has those kind of bookshelves. It'd be a custom job. That'd probably cost some money.
Definitely not IKEA.
Yeah. I think it'd be fun though. And yeah, I think I was upstairs in the old studio last time. Man, there's been a lot of painting in this house since then. Oh my god, I hate painting. hate painting. But yes, everything needs. At 50 years old, especially,
Gotta
everything
paint.
needs to be where it goes. Put shit away. Don't leave stuff out. I can't. I just won't. It's not an obsession. That stuff gets a
See,
hold
what
of
you
you.
don't understand is my extremely, what you would say, unorganized way of having things all over the place is extremely organized. I have a map.
I mean, that's a
Everything in the
trope
house
at
is
this point,
exactly
yeah.
where it should be. Yeah, that is on the floor, and it should be on the floor because in an emergency, when I tackle down to evade gunfire, it's going to be right where I need it.
Ah, that's where
Not
the
put up
secret
in a
room
safe
comes in.
somewhere.
Yeah, right. Yeah. No, we've got the I mean, look, it's not like I designed the house this way, but there are enough sections in the house to designate certain
Yeah, that's the paintbrush room.
utilities.
Yeah.
Yeah, we put all our paintbrushes there. You know.
No, I'm going to show you the paintbrush room one day, and you're going to be like, "Oh, it is a paint."
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought it would be. Is what I will say in the future.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, anyway, having that part of the basement that goes under the front porch is a real hassle because you're not supposed to have basements in South Carolina. Do you know this? Like all the rain that we get here.
Oh yeah.
Like,
That makes
so
sense.
we had to, when I moved in, we had to grade. This is really boring. But we had to grade the landscaping. We had to redo the landscaping out front to grade it away from the house.
You
And
got
now
Do you
flood
ever get any water in there?
yeah.
Well,
I
I'm
had
sure
to,
you have flood insurance. You live in a state where you see
Yeah.
flood a lot.
yeah, but I had to like seal a wall. There's like a cinder block wall that I had to seal. Took about a month.
Wow. Did they
Yeah.
increase your premium for that situation?
Hmm?
For having your
No, I haven't revealed exactly how much square foot. No, yeah. I mean, it's still everything across the board is cheaper here than Colorado. It's
Oh yeah,
amazing.
sure. So it doesn't
It's amazing. They were like, "What were you paying in Colorado?" And we told them, and they were like, "For what?" And I was like, "Yeah, fucking snow, I guess. I don't know."
yeah.
It's also,
Hey.
living in a state that has a functioning government.
Yeah. Well, it functions here, just not how you want it to. But so tomorrow night is the total lunar eclipse, and I am very happy to be in South Carolina because I go out in my front yard and it is clear as hell. It is amazingly clear here compared to South Carolina compared to Colorado. South Carolina, the sky, and you wouldn't maybe think that was true, but like it's the difference is a lot less lights here. Like in Colorado, it was like heavily populated. I'm currently in the middle of nowhere. So it's pretty dark when you go outside.
Oh, okay. That's what you mean. Okay.
So the sky is just like, wow, there it is finally. So I'm really looking forward to this. Apparently,
I was actually kind of shocked. I thought Greenville was a fairly
Greenwood.
Greenwood.
It's a different
I'm
place.
an hour south of Greenville.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, I'm saying when I was down in Greenville, I just thought that Greenville was a bigger city than I thought it was. But it's only like 80 plus thousand people. And I'm from Winston, which is like nowhere North Carolina. And we have 250,000 people. So I'm just like,
yeah.
Wow. South Carolina.
There's 29,000 where I am.
Oh, yeah. That's small.
And
like Boone.
Yeah, and 30% poverty. And everybody is like highly critical of Greenville because people want to live in Greenwood and commute to Greenville. And now, so they're building homes here and everyone's like, oh, here they come.
Oh,
those
yeah.
Greenvillers. They're going to come down here and they're going to live here and they're going to make everything congested and weird. And I'm like, don't worry. It's not going to be that congested. Like everything is pretty spread out down here. I was like, I lived in Boulder, Colorado. I'm not sure what the population was, but it was packed and they wanted it to be attractive to tourists and feel like an old mountain town with like a whole bunch of 1-lane roads. And I'm like, you guys fucked everything up because now there's nothing but traffic jams, and there probably shouldn't be. But you could also get around on foot and bicycle very easily. So I did that. That was always great. The
That's
bike
the
paths are
drawback
fantastic.
about southern cities. I get to travel a lot, and definitely on the West Coast, the ability to bike is so much more. I mean, try to bike around here, you're definitely getting hit by a car.
We don't even have sidewalks where I am.
That's
There's
what
like
I'm
one
saying.
sidewalk.
Yeah.
Don't
Scary.
even get me started on these fucking cars, man. These fucking goddamn cars. All of them. Just get rid of them.
I called. So
yeah.
I went out to the driveway yesterday and saw that my pickup truck, flat tire, had a
Ooh.
big, huge piece of metal in it. It was just crazy.
Jeez.
Hate when
Totally
that
flat.
happens.
And I was like, So I couldn't get the lug nuts off. They've been machined on by whoever put the tires on. So I
They
couldn't get them
machined
off.
on.
So I called AAA and said, can I get a tow truck out here? 5 hours later, I called at like 3. At 8 o'clock, I was like, because you call back and they go, we're experiencing delays. We'll let you know when we have an update. And I was like, oh my God. So I called and wanted to get somebody on the phone to be like, I'm canceling it. But like, do I try this again tomorrow? This is the first time I ever called AAA and it didn't work. I was like, what if I was on the side of the road? I should have started walking when I called you. But anyway, they were like, yeah, we don't know what to do. We called them and it just keeps ringing. The tow truck guy. And I was like, all right, fuck it. Cancel it. I'll just call my own because they'll reimburse you. So I call him today at like 10. He got here around 5 o'clock. Is that unreal? If I call, I've more than once had to call a tow truck in Colorado over 23 years. They're 15, 20 minutes right there.
Wow. That would have been
I wonder
terrible.
what that's indicative of.
I mean, I just think they're driving great distances for one job and then they have to go back. I don't know. But it made me think, well, I've get a loan and start a tow truck company down here and be doing good. Know what I mean? Get 2 or 3 tow trucks on the road for 8 hours a day. Bank.
You're gonna tow every car in the entire city.
I'd have the market. I'd corner the market on that one.
There you go. South Park Tow in South Carolina.
And you know what? Somebody's talking about the U.S. Postal Service down here. It's awesome. It's amazing. They 7 days a week. I don't want them to have to do that, but the mail is 7 days a week where I am. If you can believe that. Get mail on Sunday. I get mail on holidays. They're always going. It's amazing. I think they're contract workers, which is what kind of worries me because they're not always in mail trucks. And they'll be the first to get cut.
Yeah. I mean, South Carolina, the big joke is every time, North Carolinians slide across the state, the roads down there are so terrible. Recently, you guys paved the interstate down there, so that was nice.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah. Normally, my car is like, I feel like I'm on a rock road or rocky road somewhere.
That's the appeal. That's the Southern appeal.
That's the appeal, right?
That's why you get shot at, too. Like, I get shot at, and I'm like, I love it here.
Yeah, that's my favorite part.
Oh gosh.
But what was I gonna say about that? There's the mail. Check this out. I have been reading a new Substack by new to me by Chloe Humbert. Very good Substack. And Chloe was on my show last week. They are and so Chloe's been on the Discord, like participating on the Discord. It's a real treat for me because it's like I get the Substack and side commentary on Discord. They're talking about and apparently this has been a plan for like a long time. They want the USPS to do the census.
Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, can you imagine like you're a letter carrier and they're like, hey, do the census while you're out there?
Jeez.
Fuck no. I drop off the mail and leave. I don't walk up to the door and wait for somebody, right?
I can imagine how much longer, how much extra stress, how much.
You would never get your mail. Because it's not like they have twice the letter carrier, so that like some people just keep doing the regular mail and then other people do the census. Like, oh my God. That just sounds like a nightmare.
Jeez.
Yeah. Anyway, they're just doing it so they can break it up. So they can go, see, they're useless. They can't even do the census. Get rid of them.
These fuckers, yeah. I mean, the census is a powerful tool in terms of demographic recognition and so on. That's why they fucked with it the last time.
They're doing it again. They're saying that I guess undocumented people currently are part of the census, and now they're not going to be. Right?
Yeah, well, the census is all persons within the United States is what the census's goal is to achieve, and that would include undocumented people. That would also technically include visitors, travelers, whatever.
How often does the census take place?
It's like 10 years. It should be every year. Let's be honest. We should put this shit on the blockchain or some shit. But what are we doing here? 10 years? Come on.
Well, once
10 years?
Elon Musk puts his AI in charge, I'm sure we'll get daily numbers.
Yeah, daily update on the census, live population count, deaths, births. It's all counted there.
Jeez.
Yeah, it freaks me out. Everything freaks me out. So it is 11:42 p.m. on the East Coast, and I hope everyone's having a pleasant evening. I have to get up early.
Oh, is this you saying I got to get out of here?
I do a morning show.
No one told you. Well, you're going to be doing a morning show after I'm done with you in terms of, it's death morning with a U.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow. Thanks. How many Johns are writing stuff in the Bible now?
Yeah.
Very confusing. And it's like John, son of John.
Ooh, hate when that
brother to John. And very confusing. Spell it differently, at least. I'll be in mourning. Good one, Andrea. Oh, So my thing is, I can actually stay up pretty late and get up pretty early. But here's what I've noticed. When my show includes me reading articles, not so good. Like, if I'm at all tired, it's just like, it's really bad. So like, I was like, oh, I'll make like a video heavy stream. I can't even, I was like, what videos? I'm not going to sit there and watch the Majority Report, but like, I can't do it.
Yeah, let's just sit here and watch the Majority Report with Letterhack. That's going to be the new show every day at 3.
The Jubilee one
that
did was pretty good. I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that. If the word enjoyed made me want to kill myself. Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed that.
It was hearing some of the conservative, like, I'm like, what the? And then that was like, don't you want an ethno-national? I wouldn't know. Like, don't.
And it turns out that bitch is not even American.
She's Canadian.
She's not even American. So.
Oh wow.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's all bullshit.
And one of those guys works for actual Nazi. Yeah, and some of them are just completely phony. Not because look around that circle and you will see the best example of DEI hires that are all against DEI. It was the most eclectic.
Like just the idea. So we're gonna get young conservatives. Already we're in the DEI world. Like young conservatives. Are you fucking kidding me? And then we're gonna get a woman conservative. We're gonna get a gay conservative. We're gonna get all different types and just put them in. It's like a melting pot or something. It's almost like that.
Well,
it was very phony.
That federal agencies don't pay taxes.
That is just like so upset. There was one kid, and I'm calling him a kid because he looked younger than me, but Sam's point was, if you are happy with Donald Trump, then you're either a Christian nationalist, racist, or a billionaire, right? And it's like, that's a perfect like Sam statement to make. And this kid wanted to argue that by proving that he is in fact a Christian nationalist,
and he loves Trump.
and he went.
That's the thing, is these guys are illiterate. Like, they're going up there, like they're like,
Yeah, it's
oh
like, what
yes,
do
I
you
can't wait to debate the claim that only Christian like theocrats like Trump, by saying I'm a Christian theocrat and I like Trump. like
Sam
because
said
they
it
don't
was
even
difficult.
think to even debate. They just want to get out. They just want to get their little fucking. They don't even know what the claim is. They just want to sit in the seat and say bullshit. You know.
Yeah, and Sam said it was hard to respond to because it was this endless stream of BS and stupidity. And every time he would make a point, they would just shift, just blatantly shift away. They would say something wrong. He would prove them wrong, and they would just shift. Oh, well, what about this? And it's like, well, wait a second. I thought we were talking about the other thing. But this one guy was talking about, he was answering the question for Sam. So this literally, like, one of the things he said, this not verbatim, but he said, so in a moral society for you, gay people are allowed to get married, right? And he goes, yeah. And he's like, they're allowed to be gay, right? And he goes, yeah. He goes, because it feels good. And Sam's like, what? You could just see Sam was like, where are we going with this?
I know.
And he goes,
what's
so if a
To be
moral
honest, though,
society,
being gay does feel good. It is true. The rumors are true.
yeah, my first thought was like, why are you against doing shit that feels good, my man? Like, you only do stuff because you have to, whether you want to or not. That's not okay. All right. Do you need us to help? Should we call somebody? But then he equates it to incest, and right away he's like, so if in a moral society tomorrow pedophiles are illegal, you're okay with that, right? And it's like, look, you can just say shit all you want, but it doesn't mean that it makes any sense. And these equivalencies are so out of whack. Like, you're just throwing extremes around. And that has been a conservative debate bro tactic since debate bro has been like a thing, right? And I don't understand why that is still an acceptable form of quote unquote debate. I don't think you come out of debate class like in a university and they're like, throw as much bullshit as your opponent as possible. It doesn't have to mean anything. I don't think that's debate.
They're just emulating the personalities that they see on the media. I mean,
yeah, at this point, yep.
Yeah, I mean, that's what's going on here, is that when you can't defend your position, just keep on shifting the goalposts right away into something else that's completely off of the topic. I love at one point Sam was like, what day is it? Tuesday.
Yeah, he said, what month is it?
Like, okay, so making sure we're all here.
There was that awkward gap too, where that guy couldn't answer the question for like 5 seconds.
Yeah, I memorized all the crap I wanted to say, and so I haven't left room for any facts like January, right? That's what it was. It was they go into it with memorization, not arguments based on any sort of like logic or philosophy or pattern of thought. They've memorized these talking points. They've memorized positions based on a couple of sentences per position, and that's it. And the way they were asking questions were like, so you think this, right? Well, okay, so since you agree, and it's like, well, hold on, I didn't agree. I don't think that. You're just doing all the talking. This isn't a debate. So I thought it would have been better if they're going to sit there like that with a clock to have it be a timer for each person. Like they try to do in presidential debates, like where you hit the button and then you really got to deliver your point, and then the other guy gets to go, and then, you know what I mean? That would have been better, like speed chess.
Well, the whole like Jubilee is just a right-wing operation. Like, the whole thing is to shift the Overton window and make it seem like these are things that are reasonable to debate about. Yeah. Like, yeah, let's debate about whether or not it's acceptable to be a xenophobic nationalist. Like, well, that's the thing. Like, it's one thing if you say I'm a nationalist, but to say I am xenophobic, Like, why would you be
Right.
like? Why would you say that? Like, you don't like. Isn't the core argument behind xenophobia is like, well, we need to worry about our own things, not well, I'm literally afraid of these people destroying my culture. Like, why would you say like, yeah, I'm totally afraid of them destroying my culture? Doesn't that make you seem like a little bit of a
They
pussy?
See, that's why I love when Sam asks her, "What do you mean your culture? What are you
right.
talking
A
about?"
Canadian culture, because that bitch is from Canada.
You know, people are very, and that's kind of what I'm doing on my channel is these preconceived ideas and notions and beliefs people have. Let's get critical. Let's actually think about what we're saying, why we're saying it, why we have the beliefs that we do, instead of having, like you said, Matt, these go to 5-second lines. I got 10 sentences on all ideas that I've ever had, and that's
It's
it.
all the cultural inertia. It's like the shit that because this is like I've said this before that we're hardwired to trust our parents, like for what food to eat to survive and stuff like that. But then our parents are telling us shit like Rush Limbaugh is like the most, honest person imaginable. And we're hardwired to go like, well, mommy is telling me this. It must be for my own, survival. I must know this to live. And then it's a bunch of horse shit, so they never question. That's the thing that's amazing to me is you can just tell someone something when they're 5 and then like 60 years later they'll say that thing with perfect repetition and they've never thought about it their whole life.
Yeah, they kept putting facts up on screen. Facts. They would shift the screen over and put up a fact that was more of like an opinion, and there was no source cited. It was just they just had some words that would say actually at the time, blah blah blah. And it's like that's just a right wing position. This isn't a fact. And here's the most nefarious part of the whole damn thing. Obviously, everyone's going to be like showing this on their streams and critiquing it and commenting on it and clicking it, and they went around and started giving copyright strikes to everyone who's doing that, and you can't monetize your videos. Like I showed one clip during a members only live stream, and just as an example of like why I wouldn't bother watching this unless Sam covers it, and he covered it, so that's interesting, and he might do more. But I you know, I don't monetize members only live streams because they're members. They're already paying for it.
You got to
I'm
double
not
dip.
gonna
You got to get the
I'm
members to
not
watch
double dipping.
ads. They're the most likely to click on the ads.
But I got a notification that said this video cannot be monetized, and now there's like a red $ with a slash through it next to it, and I'm like, I wasn't fucking monetizing it anyway. You don't have to come at me like that. It's so weird. But anyway, I just thought like that was bullshit of them to be like, yeah. Every time we get a notification that somebody's using it, ding them. Just a bunch of dickheads. Because now that's all lefty media, right?
Yeah.
All lefty YouTubers are gonna get some sort of penalized. It's just I don't know. It just felt like a tactic. Another tactic.
And then it's also like the thing about I've never seen a Jubilee before. Like I know they're relatively popular, but I've never actually sat and watched any of these. But like it says like Sam Cedar versus 20 MAGAs, but only like 4 people ever fucking actually get a chance to talk. Like where are the 20 MAGAs? Just because they're like hired extras, like as far as I'm aware, they're like CGI, like copy pasted in the background. Like why does it say 1 versus 20 when it's 1 versus 4 and it's one at a time and they all lose,
And they stop right in the middle. And this I feel like I might be remembering it wrong. It was an older man. He's Asian. He's wearing like cool denim. He has on like a knit cap and glasses. I wouldn't look at him and go conservative, right? I wouldn't. But he goes, "Hey everyone, just wanted to take a second and say thanks for your support. Thanks for watching." And I was like, fast forward. I don't give a fuck about this. But like I get that. This is like where streamers will stop and say, "Hey, just want to take a minute to ask everyone to please like, subscribe, and share. Your support keeps this going." But this fucker was trying to make it sound like there was a point to all of this. Like this was serving some greater good between us to have our thoughts out there, and everyone
It's
gets
just a
to say what
right-wing
they're.
fucking
Yeah,
project of like,
yeah.
let's get like, like Sam Cedar, he's pretty lefty, but like when like have they ever gotten anyone who's like actually a radical academic leftist, like super well educated, super far left? Like, no, it's always like the commentator space. And like God bless the commentator space. We're here right now. But it's like, like when you're really thinking about like let's debate, like why is it commentary? Like commentators. Like I want to see like academics, people that have like read this shit for 30 years
Harvey
straight.
K would wipe
Like,
the
yeah, I want to
floor
see
with
people who
them.
actually know what they're talking about go up again. Like, and again, Sam Cedar is probably one of the best in the commentary game for actually being that kind of more academic-y type person. But like that's like a debate is not like they always get like these Charlie Kirk type characters. How is that a debate? What is he an expert in? He's an expert in nothing. Like, he's an expert at taking money
Did you
and sucking
see?
dick.
So Gavin Newsom has a podcast now, governor of California, and his first guest was Charlie Kirk. Do you know who his second guest is going to be? Steve Bannon. What the fuck? And people are putting up memes now of him and Darth Vader, and they're like, there's good things we can learn from the dark side, you guys. What the fuck? God, what a piece of shit. Just the worst. It's the whole, well, I was going to bring up the Young Turks and start railing against them again, but let's not do that.
No, let's do it. So we got Cenk Uygur over here, the Young Turks. Am I right, people? Woo! Yeah.
He has, there's a real problem with Gavin Newsom talking to Charlie Kirk, condemning trans people, right? That's a real problem. It's especially a real problem because it's carrying a narrative through the Democratic Party that hurt their opportunity to win, which is just that it's why they lost, right? Which is absurd. That's crazy. Nobody ran on that. It's ridiculous. But my one thing that I keep thinking about a lot is this criticism that people are asking for too many rights, that which I assume means they shouldn't be equal. And so the argument that I keep hearing is, look, if you keep asking for more rights, Cenk uses a pendulum analogy. I don't get this, but he goes, if you keep asking for rights, the pendulum goes one way, and if it swings too far, it'll swing back because pendulums always swing back. And I was like, wait, you lose rights? What is this? So what I want to do is ask people, just anyone who believes this philosophy that Newsom is going to be pushing and the Democrats are going to be pushing, I want to say whatever they are, like, let's just use a white woman. I want to go, so where do you personally compromise your rights in order to keep that pendulum from swinging back too far? Because as a white man, I've got all the rights. Equal rights means you would be in line with my rights. So where do you compromise in order to fall short of my status so your pendulum doesn't swing back too far? And then it unravels, because now you're not just talking about the trans community. You're talking about literally everyone who deserves more rights than they may have. Does that make sense?
Well, this is the kind of, the quote unquote arc of history that we keep on fighting is, different groups trying to win rights. And then a lot of times when these groups do get their rights, they make it sometimes harder for other minority groups to get those same rights. But actually, there's a little truth to what Cenk Uygur is saying. In Black American history, we call it the white backlash. And that is, quote unquote, when civil rights progresses too much, certain white demographics have a very reactionary response.
Right.
We saw that multiple times throughout American history.
So why aren't we fighting that instead of asking people to work within that system? We should be railing against, and the Democrats should be like, oh, fuck this. Everyone needs permanent equal rights that can't swing back and forth. But instead, they're like, you guys, we got to work with
Like,
this, or don't be
we're
trans.
gonna get really mad about this, so let's cool it.
Yeah,
Gonna
and
be
people
mad.
who are doing that, like Gavin Newsom, they're trying to triangulate. They're trying to stick their finger into the proverbial wind and see where the sentiment of the country is going. And right now, he's saying Trump is coming in strong. He still has pretty high numbers despite all the craziness going on. If I want to be taken seriously on the political stage, then I'm going to have to be somebody who looks like, I'm willing to talk with these guys and work with these guys.
But
And
that's the thing, like it's so short-sighted. Like these people think in 2-week like windows of context, Like if Gavin, like that's the thing when Trump won the election, quote unquote won the election, when that happened, Gavin Newsom was doing the whole like we're gonna stand up for trans people. We've stood up to Trump before, and then as soon as Trump takes office, all of a sudden it's like, well, right? So it's like, I don't know, like, what is the calculation? If you can just swing that fast from, Trump winning the election, we're going to stand up for trans people, no one is illegal, to, well, maybe some of them are illegal. I don't know, I just don't get it. Like, I mean, and I perceive Gavin Newsom as like that American Psycho type character who like should be smarter. He should kind of have that like more than 2-week context window. So like to me, when I see that, I'm thinking like, what is his calculation? Is he really thinking like trans rights are going to be unpopular in 10 years? Or is he just like, fuck the long game, I'm switching strategy? I don't know.
you got to remember, look at how the business community has moved on this as well. During the Obama era, I remember, companies were trying to show that they were pride accepting, that they were gay friendly. And a lot of that, companies are running in the opposite direction now. And a lot of the companies that, were considered liberal, not necessarily progressive, but liberal, look at where Apple's Tim Cook is today. I mean, look at where Facebook's who's the guy that does Facebook, and Mark Zuckerberg. Look at where these people are today. I mean, they are in the hands of the Trump administration. They're all sent their nice multi-million-dollar donations, and so this is what we're looking at, is that it's a fleecing up the power.
Yep, that's it.
And it's also like it's frustrating that these people love to parade around like they're intellectuals, like they're gonna go on Joe Rogan's show and smoke a blunt and go like, man, isn't the universe like crazy, dude? When these guys, like every couple weeks, their entire political philosophy is totally different, but the one thing that never changes is like, isn't Trump amazing? Let's suck his dick 24/7. Every other part of their political philosophy changes depending on the news cycle, other than how
Kiss the
glorious
Ring
is
better.
Trump's wonderful cock,
I think I like Bend the Knee better than any of those other
No.
images
Trump's
you're putting
wonderful,
in my head.
lovely
Oh my God.
dick that they suck on a 24-hour basis,
With a roach clip. Okay, so it is 12:04 a.m. on the East Coast. Happy Thursday, everyone. Tonight is the total lunar eclipse. It'll be fun. It's in about 24 hours. For now, we're going to wrap up this show. I want to thank our guest, Antonio Reed, for coming on. Thanks for being here. You can hear the music playing us out. As soon as we get into those graphic imagery, that's what really turns the letter hack off. But seriously, Antonio, thanks for coming on. Really do appreciate it. And actually, I mean, basically open invite. It's so easy to have you on the show. I mean, just come on.
Sandy's always in the hospital, so we're gonna need you really often.
Happy to be here.
I want to thank Jake Draugellis for being on the show.
I don't want to thank Jake Draugellis. I think he's had enough thanks. I think he's doing fine.
Okay, I take it back. Jake, no thank you, I guess. And Andrea Rovinsky, what can I say? Just absolute pleasure every single time, right up until those really gross graphic analogies that really put me off.
My free speech is under
Yep.
attack.
Nope. Don't talk during the outro
My free
or the
speech
intro.
is-
No
I'm being
talking.
suppressed.
This ruins it.
This is a totalitarian takeover of Let's Pass 10. This is unacceptable. I will not accept this, to be honest with you.
Take it up with the board.
I will not
Who
take it
is-
anywhere.
Me and you. So
I'm gonna
let's
keep it
talk about it
here.
offline.
I will talk about it online in my call out post. I will be publishing a call out post imminently
This is
of
what it's
my
like, folks.
censorship.
What it's like off air.
It's also what it's like on air, to be
Very
honest. as
nonstop.
well.
Yeah, actually, that's
It's very
accurate.
similar to the on air experience.